What I'm talking about today is Istanbul beyond the tourist trail. Now, what I mean by that is that I'm going to have us look at places that you may not be thinking of the first time you think of Istanbul. Because a lot of us, we think of Istanbul. I know some of you have been to Istanbul. A lot of us think about Istanbul and think, going to the mosques, going to the palaces, and things like that. But I'm here to tell you, as someone who lives in Istanbul, usually a couple months out of each year, that there is a lot more to see than that. This is my city. I love evangelizing it. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Istanbul beyond the tourist trail. So let's do it. All right, so Istanbul, I always like to tell people it's more than mosques and markets. I was saying earlier that mosques are such a big thing that tourists see there. A lot of the Hagia Sophia, the Blue Mosque, the Sultanahmet Mosque, people go and look at those. And there are some markets too, like there's the Grand Bazaar, the old historic marketplace. There's also the slightly smaller Spice Bazaar. That's a little bit more, well, spice and food oriented. And those are places that people visit a lot. But I want to tell you, because sometimes I've talked with people, I've actually gotten texts from people I know when they're over there and they say, I've been here one day, I've been to all the mosques, I've been to all the markets. Is there anything else to do? Well, yes, there is, especially as someone who is really in love with the city. I just want to tell you what else there is to do. And that's what today is all about, getting a feel for the real city and the real people. In fact, in my travel business, I'm often asked, how can we have a locals experience? How can we have a better cultural experience? And this is what I want to tell you about. So, this can be done if you're on your first visit to Istanbul and maybe you have a longer extended time in Istanbul, or on a return trip to Istanbul. It could be a reason to go back. So, a little bit about me. I think a lot of you know me. I founded the business a couple years ago called I'm Out of Here Travel. It's bespoke travel planning, which means that I tailor whatever you want to do to your wants and your needs. So, just as an example, this is not an Istanbul example, but as an example, I had a couple that I planned a trip for who just went on their trip a couple weeks ago. They don't drink alcohol. So, when I suggested activities, I didn't suggest anything involving alcohol. So I listen to your wants and needs and I give you what you want to make the best trip for you. And so, like I say here, I love Turkey so much that I and my husband, who is also in this call, we both got dual citizenship. It was a long, involved process. I'm not going to talk about the process when I'm here because it would take a while. Neither one of us has Turkish genes or ethnicity, but we just liked it so much that we wanted to get opportunities to stay there for a little bit longer. So, because of that, we own an apartment in the middle of Istanbul. We live part-time there. It really depends on the year. Last year, we were there for 9 weeks over the summer. This year, we may not get there at all, but things happen here and there. In any case, I own the apartment and I love being there, and I consider myself an expert. And for me, what makes this really, what makes my experience really good, my background really good for this is I grew up in America, so I kind of have a feel for what Americans do on a day-to-day basis, but I spend enough time over there that I also understand the local culture because there are plenty of people who are in the tourist industry in Istanbul and in all of Turkey who are fluent in English, and you can have a great conversation with them. But they didn't grow up in America, so they don't know our side of things. So this way, it's a nice way to merge the two. So yes, and a question I get sometimes is, "Do you speak Turkish?" And I will say, "Çok az." That means very little. I speak a little. I'm practicing all the time, so I can be a good citizen when I'm over there. So whether I'm planning for Istanbul or any other destination, I love helping people explore different cultures, this one being one of them, with minimal stress. So sometimes when you're trying to plan a trip for somewhere brand new to you, oh no, you get into analysis paralysis. What do I do? Where do I go? That's where I help, especially as I consider myself a local in Istanbul. So that really helps with there. So, and a little picture of me from the side. It's a slightly out of date picture, but I think I pretty much still look like that picture. All right, so in case you do not know where Istanbul is in this world, I just did a screenshot of a Google map here. And well, I think most of us probably recognize this format. So Istanbul is right here on this thin strip of land. You can see that it's between Europe. We have a lot of Eastern Europe here, and the East, and the East being a certain number of countries here. Question I get asked a lot these days is, oh no, should we be worried about Istanbul because it's close to Iran? Well, considering that Istanbul is here and Iran is over here, I'll tell you it's about 1,000 miles from Istanbul to the Iranian border. So as long as you just imagine this, if there were troublesome things going on in Seattle, would you want to visit Chicago or not? It's a little tiny bit farther, but it's kind of the same concept, thinking that if they're far enough apart, it should be fine. Now, of course, random chance things can happen anywhere, right? Istanbul can have an attack, Seattle can have a random attack. But just telling people, telling all of you that it is okay. And again, just showing you where it is in the world. It is between the continent of Europe, that is on the left side here, and the continent of Asia, which is on the right side. In fact, a majority, I can't come up with a percent off the top of my head, but I'd say at least 90 to 95% of the country of Turkey is actually in Asia. The continental split is right down the center of Istanbul, and that often gives it some unique character. Just wanted to show you where it was in case you did not know. So going forward, why would you want to spend more time in Istanbul? Well, I can go on and on forever, but I'm trying to condense it down a little bit. So, okay, I was just told that my screen is not being shared. I have, so just a brief pause here. I was just told my screen is not being shared. Zoom is telling me I'm screen sharing. Okay, so it was my husband over here. Thank you, Stephanie, for telling me that you can see it because it was my husband saying I can't see it. But Zoom's telling me I'm screen sharing. So anyway, apologies for that little brief time out there. Thank you all. And so why would you want to spend more time here? Like I said, I could go on forever and ever and ever about this. And cultural crossroads, like I said, it is at that combination of the two continents, Europe and Asia. To that point, though, sometimes I'll have people say to me, oh, the two sides must be really different. I've actually heard from some people on the Asian side, do they have Chinese restaurants? Well, they do, but it's not Chinese culturally. The two sides of Istanbul, I think people kind of overblow the fact that it's two different continents because they are similar enough. They're different, but it's different in different neighborhoods, just like the neighborhood of downtown Seattle. I'll say this because I have a lot of Seattle people here. Just like you could say the neighborhood of downtown Seattle is different from the feel of Bellevue across the lake, but they're still urban centers. So just saying that there's a little bit of difference, but maybe not as much as you think. That said, Istanbul was the capital of the Ottoman Empire, which lasted for centuries. And so it had a lot of different cultures weaving its way through it, both from Europe and the Asian side and through the Silk Road side. So, because of that, there's so much variety of culture that you can see. Crafts, like historic crafts, architecture, all over the place. Food, of course, you got to mention the food when you're talking about Istanbul. I will talk more about that later, but I'm trying to emphasize more of the other activities and not the food. There are a lot of different kinds of people there too, from different backgrounds. So I'm always surprised when I'm going around Istanbul and meeting people who are from Turkey and they have different skin colors, they have different hair colors, and it's great for me to see that diversity. So, again, those are things that can just keep you occupied for quite some time. And checking out local life, neighborhoods at a relaxed pace. Sometimes when we travel somewhere, we move fast, right? We're moving at a fast pace and we want to go from here to here to here to here to here. But sometimes it's nice to take a step back, slow down a little bit so that we can just see things a little bit more locally. Local markets, local parks, spend time on the Asian side. Like I mentioned, the Asian side isn't really different. It's not really that is Asia, other than it is technically the continent of Asia. It's basically feels almost like just crossing a state line in a sense, but it is a little bit different, and I'll tell you why in just a bit. But those are so many things you can do to occupy your time when you're spending a lot of time in Istanbul. Couple of pictures I have around here that I just wanted to point out and share. Obviously, this is just a little cartoon drawing of a mosque. I don't know if it's trying to be any any one particular mosque. Ferries are one thing that is very special about Istanbul. That'll come up later. But ferries, because it you can see on the map. Let me go back here just a hot second. Oh, it's going the wrong way for me. All right, so you can see Istanbul is in the middle of all this water, right? We have the Black Sea on this side. This connects to the Mediterranean Sea on the other side. I do have a zoomed in map later where you can see that there's a waterway just right down the center of Istanbul. So ferries are all over the place. People use them for transportation, but it's also what I always consider one of the cheapest cruises in the world because one trip on the ferry, it depends on which ferry you're on, whether you're on a longer or shorter ferry ride, but one trip on the ferry will cost you between $1 and $1.50. So if you're doing a round trip on the ferry by yourself, should be maximum, oh, exchange rates are changing, but should be maximum around $3 or $4. And of course, someone else might be going with you and pay the same thing, but it's still pretty darn cheap to be able to sit out on a nice little boat in the middle of the water and have some great views. Here I have it's just a stairway up one of the hills. It's really beautiful. I just wanted to showcase some of the beautiful architecture that is in this city and just walking around town and exploring. You can see that it's fantastic for photography too. Thanks. Thanks for the comment there. And over here, this is a pile of spices and teas. Now, the Spice Bazaar is probably the most famous of these markets that sell spices and teas, but there are also other ones that aren't quite so famous throughout the city. So you can go and explore them at any point yourself. And dry spices, dry teas. So it's just a great way to see a lot of colors, also get a lot of great photography there, and try some local things. And they smell great too. All right. So, in terms of where to stay, I get asked this every now and then because, yes, I work in the travel industry. I have some friends also in the travel industry, but not everyone is an Istanbul expert, right? So I like to help out other people. I've gotten asked by people, where do we stay when we go to Istanbul? I have my recommendations. This actually, funny thing, I've seen a lot of YouTube videos recently where YouTubers are saying, hey, these are the recommended neighborhoods to stay. And their suggestions pretty much mirror my suggestions. So I think we're on to something here. So I have a map of these on the next page. So you can't, so you know exactly where it is. So your chance to branch out is what I'm saying, because sometimes on our first trip, sometimes in the first trip, everyone stays near that tourist center. So I'm going to skip ahead to the next one so you can see I'm going to go back and forth. So here's the map of Istanbul. The wording Istanbul is pretty much right across the center of all the tourist attractions. In this area, you have the Spice Bazaar, the Grand Bazaar. You have an old palace, Topkapi Palace over there. And this is where a lot of people tend to stay when they go to Istanbul because they think, well, hey, I want to be all near all the tourist attractions, which is great. On the flip side of that, it is very, very touristy there. The restaurants in this area and this peninsula are expensive. Sometimes they'll scam you at the restaurants. You have to be careful for that. So there have been some places that I've heard. I luckily have not been to one of these places where they give you the menu at the restaurant. You make your order and then they take the menu away so that when they charge extra on the bill, you don't know it because you don't have the menu in front of you to compare. So anyway, weird things happen like that sometimes. And I prefer to stay close enough to the things we want to see,
Mhm.
but maybe not in the middle of all of that business there. So I'm gonna go back and forth so you can see what I'm talking about. So my favorite neighborhood for a first timer or anyone or really anyone who wants to see the tourist attractions is called Karaköy, and also Galata is right next door. So I'm going to show you that on the map. It is just across this waterway. So right here, just for a little bit of geography, this is the Bosphorus Strait that goes up eventually to the Black Sea. This is something we call the Golden Horn. It just kind of ends there, but it's a waterway that goes along here. Now, this Golden Horn divides Karaköy from all the touristy areas in Sultanahmet, and which is not on the map, but that's where all the touristy areas are. And this is nice because it's out of the middle of the tourist hubbub. Yes, there is. It's not to say that there's nothing touristy on the other side, but it's not quite so touristy. So it feels kind of more relaxed from that. And to get from this neighborhood over to here, it's a 15-minute walk, or you can get on a tram and get there in just a few moments. There is a tram that goes across and lets you off at all the historic sites there. So I mentioned Galata as well. So some of you may be familiar with this Galata Tower. It's a landmark. You may have seen it on pictures or in YouTube, Instagram. It's a tall tower where you can climb up and walk around and get a view of the city. So the neighborhood around there is also very nice. So those are, again, very close, but still just removed from the tourist hub of. The next one I'm going to talk about, the next neighborhood I'm going to talk about, you see I have them all marked there, is called Cihangir. And that is just up a little way. So you can imagine if you walked this whole way, it might be half an hour. But again, this is close to a tram line. There's a tram line that runs all along the coast here. So you can just walk down, take the tram, come over and see the sights, and then go back into the quieter area for the day. So Karakoy is just centrally located. Cihangir has a lot of, is kind of a little bit more hipster, I would say. It has some cafes. It has antique shops. There are a lot of antique furniture stores. So if you like browsing around things like that, that's a fun neighborhood to stay in. Now, while I'm on this picture, I do have a couple of maps along the way. But while I'm on this picture, I want to point out that up here, kind of under the Dolmabahce Palace name, is the infamous Taksim Square. Taksim Square is like one of the main squares of the actual city when we're talking about the working city, not the touristy city. And there's a lot of tourism around Taksim Square, so you would be very close to that if you wanted to stay in one of those. Just going to try to remember the other commentary I have. So I said my favorite for first time is Karakoy or Galata, or stay in Cihangir, which is close by to the others. That's what I was saying, it's close by. A lot of people, when they're not on their first visit, or they say, I don't want to be in the middle of all the tourist stuff, they'll stay in this neighborhood called Moda, which is on the Asian side. Moda is a small subset neighborhood of Kadıköy, which is a bigger neighborhood over there. So you can see Moda is down here. I love Moda. I love visiting Moda. My house is actually over here, not far from Galata Tower. That's where I live when I'm in Istanbul. I love Moda, but if you are a tourist and you want to see the sights, you got to go a long way to be able to see them. So you can take a ferry. All these darker dotted lines here are ferries. You can take a ferry from Moda to up here, and then once between getting to the ferry, taking the ferry, and then getting to your destination, it may take up to an hour. So that's why, I mean, I don't dissuade people from Moda because it's a fantastic neighborhood. It's a little bit more European style, a little bit more of that kind of charm, tree-lined streets, maybe more boutique shopping if you're into that. But it just takes so long to get over and back. So if you are just in Istanbul for maybe 3 days, I would not recommend staying here. I recommend visiting there if you have the time, but I don't recommend staying here because I love the ferries. But if you spend an hour over and back every single day, that just cuts into your visiting time. So that's just what I wanted to say about that. I know because so many people say, oh, I want to stay in Moda. And I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to argue with that. But it has some downsides. So here are some of the things that you can see that are maybe not what tourists usually do. And again, that's what I'm trying to get into. Istanbul has a lot of parks. Maybe you knew that, maybe you didn't know that. They're all beautifully manicured. So you can see in this picture over here, you can see that it's not just random flowers. It has flowers in different patterns to make nice little patterns. And there are different kinds of flowers depending on the park you're talking about. So for instance, I don't have it on this list, but there is a park that is very popular in the month of April called Emirgan Park, and it's a little bit farther north on the European side. It is full of tulips. So they have a tulip festival there every April, just like I know not all of you on this call are from here, but over here we have the Skagit County Tulip Festival. Istanbul has a huge tulip festival. So if you can ever get there in May, this is a great place to go. And this, I don't know what park exactly that is in the picture, but just letting you know, Tulip Festival. So most of the parks are easily accessible. That one I just talked about is accessible by bus. Istanbul, just as a side note, Istanbul has an extensive public transportation system. So you can get places by bus or tram or metro. Sometimes you have to connect, as I'm sure we understand. So just going through this list and letting you know of different things you can see there aside from beautiful flowers. So Gulhane Park, Gulhane, one of the nice things about that, the name literally means rose place or place of the rose. Gul, rose. So it has a lot of roses as part of the flora there, and it also has all these beautiful designs. There are a couple museums there. Now the thing about Gulhane Park, it's very accessible. It is close by tram to the Grand Bazaar, the Spice Bazaar, and Topkapi Palace. So if you are just there for a few days and wanted to see a park in addition to all the tourist things, that's very easy to get through. Get to and get through. And one of the things I love, Gulhane Park is one of my favorite places in Istanbul, so I'll talk on and on about it. At the north end of Gulhane Park, just walk across the street, there's a cafe that is overlooking the water. It's pretty much right on top of the water. So you can walk through and have a coffee afterward, or vice versa, have a coffee, walk through afterward. So many of these have parks associated with it. So that's that. Yildiz Park is a very, very big park. It's accessible easily by bus in the neighborhood of Beşiktaş, and it's nice because it's built on a hill. So you can go up to the top of the hill and get wonderful views of the city. And like I'm saying, these are just a few examples of so many different parks we have in the city here. Taksim Park is near Taksim Square. Like I said, if you're unfamiliar with Istanbul, Taksim Square is like the main city square. And there are a lot of business buildings around it, a lot of banking and such around it. And there's just kind of this oasis park tucked back behind it. So anyone who is I've known people who work near Taksim Square, and this could be a nice little break, like at your lunchtime, go back and behind there. It's not a very big park, but it still serves a purpose. And all of these serve different purposes too. So then there's the next one, Machka Democracy Park, and it is not too far from Taksim Square. It's just a little bit north of there. The special thing about this is that there is kind of a little funicular type thing that goes over the park and you can see down into it. I believe that's someone on the call, if I am not mistaken. Yeah, Rodri, you did this, didn't you, when you were there, Rodrigo? I'm guessing that's a yes. So one of the people on this call, Rodrigo, was I saw you went off mute. So you want to say something?
No, that just that it's amazing, and also the public transportation system is just
Second to none.
incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. So Rodri and his wife were expats for a month in Istanbul when we were there last summer, and we spent so much time with them, and it was fantastic. And they went and did all the things. So it was kind of nice to exchange notes when we were there. Anyway, that was just a list of some of the many parks. And like both of us were saying, it is really, really easy to get around. So you don't have to worry about that. I'm not talking about how to access the public transportation while I am on this call, because that could be another call in and of itself, another video in and of itself. But it's very easy to use, and I may talk about that in a future Istanbul video. So, in terms of my favorite neighborhoods to explore and just giving you some ideas of different things to do, the first four are on the European side, the last two are on the Asian side. And again, it's just a little bit of different variety. Just like any city, almost every city has different personalities to the different neighborhoods, and Istanbul is no exception to that. So the first one on our list is called Beşiktaş. That was kind of between Machka and Yildiz Park. It's kind of wedged in through there. It's one of the oldest neighborhoods in the city. So being one of the oldest neighborhoods in the city, the architecture is interesting. You have these cute little winding streets to go around. It's one of the nightlife centers too, if you're into that. But I just love walking around some of these charming little tiny streets and seeing the architecture. So that is easily accessible by bus. Then there's this other neighborhood that's the Syrian district or Damascus Bazaar. It's in the larger area of Fatih, which is on that side near all the main tourist attractions. But this is a little bit off of there. So don't worry if you go to this Bazaar that you'll be in the middle of all the tourist chaos. This is the Syrian neighborhood. This is where a lot of Syrian refugees have gathered and moved. So it's just slightly different in terms of personality. You'll get a little bit different culture there. You'll get different stores. You'll get different food, different people to talk to. And I just find that super fascinating. So that's the first two. The third one is called Nishantasi, and this is like I say, it's upscale. It's where a lot of the fashion is. It's also kind of toward a lot of the office and business side of the city. And one of the things we've, as someone who's gone through a citizenship process, we have had some meetings in the offices in this neighborhood. But one thing that really stands out, there are lots of upscale clothing stores. And it's just so fun and interesting to walk along the streets and see in the windows, they have all these fancy evening gowns and all sorts of different colors. So that's one thing that you can see there. Again, it's a lot of fashion, a lot of see and be seen type of fashion. Balat is something that if you're on Instagram following anything about Istanbul, you probably have seen pictures of this. Rows of colorful houses. Balat is great for photography. Now, I'll just say because I'm biased that all of Istanbul I think is great for photography, but Balat especially because you have rows of different colored houses going up and down hills, and it's just so nice to see all of those and take pictures along the way. So the first four that I talked about, like I said, were on that European side on the west of the Bosphorus Strait. And now these other two will be on the east side of the Bosphorus Strait, Üsküdar and Bağdat Street. So Üsküdar, I feel kind of like Üsküdar's having a moment because when I first started going to Istanbul, even asked me 2 or 3 years ago, and Üsküdar was on the map, but it was kind of more a locals neighborhood. And it still has a lot of the local feel, but for better or for worse, it's getting more people to go over and visit Üsküdar. So Üsküdar, I think I have a map up soon. Let me actually go back to this map. Sorry, I'm going back and forth. Üsküdar is up here. So it's on the Asian side, like I was saying. It's just a little bit farther north. And it's one of the things that's giving it a moment is that is very ferry accessible too. You can go back and forth between this side and Üsküdar fairly easily. So going back to neighborhoods to explore, it's more authentic because it does have more traditional vibe. And it's quieter oftentimes. There are lots of small parks. This, I really feel like when I go to Üsküdar, I feel more like a local when I'm there, or I feel like I'm visiting like a local. Whereas on the European side, it definitely has some local feel, but not as much as places like Üsküdar. So it's just nice to explore over there. The last thing in my list is a neighborhood called Bağdat Street. Yes, there are some G's that you do not pronounce in Turkish. Turkish is fun, but yeah, it's called Bağdat Street. It actually Bağdat in Turkish means Baghdad, so it was functionally Baghdad Street, and that is on the Asian side, but a little tiny bit farther out. So from where I live, when I'm there, from where I live near Galata Tower, I take a ferry over to the Asian side. There's also a tram, but the ferry is so much more fun. You take a ferry over to the Asian side, and then you take a bus, and the bus gets you to Bağdat Street. And let's see, for me, it would probably take about 40 minutes to get there, maybe a tiny bit longer depending on traffic. So this literally could almost, but not quite, be any street in the world. It's a street that has a lot of your chains, but a lot of Turkish chains as well. I remember hearing about Bağdat Street for so long. And a lot of the local Turks were saying, you gotta go there because it has has a lot of stores and a lot of restaurants. And I'm thinking, stores and restaurants, I can get that anywhere. But last time when we were there, we just took a little adventure and went out there. There's a nice beachfront on one side. So on the coastline, you can see the beachfront, and then you walk up a couple blocks, and there are lots of fun local parks. There are lots of nice cafes just to explore. And one of the things, this will come up later again, but one of the things that Bağdat Street has a lot that some of the other neighborhoods do as well. So in Turkey, one of the things they like is bookstores with cafes. So Barnes and Noble and Borders were not the first ones to do this. I don't know actually which culture was the first one to do this, but they do have a lot of that there. So if you're someone like me, I like coffee, I like books. That's fairly fun to explore. So if you have just a relaxed afternoon, like of course I was there for a while, wander through a bookstore, look around. There are lots of books in Turkish, but there are also in the majority of bookstores some English books. So you can take a look at that, have a coffee or a tea at the same time. So those are just a bunch of different neighborhoods that I like exploring, and there are more, but I figured I'd keep it to this. couple of pictures to show you just some of the things you can see. I'll start in the middle because I talked about this a little bit before. This is another one of the parks. In fact, to me, if I'm looking correctly, it looks like tulips. I don't want to put on reading glasses to see if they're tulips, but they do look like tulips to me. So that could be the Emirgan Park, or it could be just another park that happens to have tulips, but you can see all the colors, nice paved walkway in there. That said, if you are saying, oh, paved walkway, that's not really a hike. There are places that you can go hiking, but it's just so convenient to go on a paved walkway to see some nice flowers and to enjoy the afternoon with a bunch of Turks. Then over here, I'll just talk about this image that's on the left. There are lots of markets, like I was saying. I showed the pictures of the spices and the loose leaf teas earlier, but this is a lot of produce. Istanbul and Turkey in general have lots of produce markets. They're very colorful. In the past, I could have said I could go into a market and not even look at the prices. I'd just buy whatever I want. But unfortunately, with inflation, there have been some fruits and vegetables that have spiked in price. So just, I say, go into one of these stores. If you want a piece of fruit for a snack or something, just be careful. Read the price label on it before you buy, because some of the things that I've seen in the stores are more expensive than what I would buy in Seattle, which is an expensive US city. So just something to keep in mind there. And then this other colorful thing over here. This is from a bookstore actually that's down the street from our apartment. It's called Minoa. There are two Minoas. One is close to us, and these are actually books on the stairs leading up to their second floor. And I think it's beautiful. So not only that, they have a nice book section to browse. They have a cafe, which is expensive. They do have a cafe though, but it's just nice to browse the book. So moving on, other fun activities that we can do when we're in Istanbul. First of all, obviously in Istanbul and in Turkey in general, food is is a major thing, but I promised myself that I would not make this all about food because there's so much other stuff to do. And oftentimes when you read about Istanbul or hear about Istanbul, first thing out of someone's mouth is food. So of course I wanted to touch on the food, but then I'm going to move on to other things. So some things you can do are take cooking classes. You can learn to make some of your favorite foods. You can learn to make baklava. That's one of the things they do over there. And then there's a place called Breakfast Street. So if you are familiar with Turkish breakfast, that's one of those if you know types of things. Turkish breakfast is different. Turkish breakfast, at least the kind of relaxed, laid back breakfast. I have a picture of a breakfast we had over here on the left. So basically, they just keep bringing you order breakfast, and they keep bringing you all sorts of containers of things. Like, for instance, we have some cheeses, we have some vegetables and olives, breads, and spreads for the breads. A lot of restaurants will have house-made jams and jellies, which are some of my favorite things. They have some tomato spreads, and if you don't know me, I love tomatoes. That's one of my favorite foods. And they have a couple other things too. Like here is a little pan that has halloumi cheese and two pieces of local sausage, and they've sauteed them in butter. And I mean, these are good, but what I love to do is take the bread and dip it into the butter that's seasoned with sausage. It's one of the best things. Not the one of the best things for me, but it's really tasty. So this is an example of a Turkish breakfast. This is the full spread Turkish breakfast that you can get at so many different restaurants, and they're similar but with variations. Some are more egg heavy, some are more fruit and vegetable heavy. So yeah, there's a lot of similarity there, and there is one street in the neighborhood of Beşiktaş called Breakfast Street. It's an L-shaped street, and there are restaurants, breakfast restaurants all along the way. I have my favorite on the street, and that's the one that I will always go to. But it's kind of tricky walking down the street because you have everyone from the restaurants trying to pull you in. You want breakfast here, you want breakfast here, you want breakfast here. And you just have to say, okay, I'm going to this other one. Or if you want to try one of those, it's fine. It's just fun that there are probably about 10 to 15 breakfast restaurants all around this street. So other things you can do, of course, going to cafes. There are lots of cafes in Istanbul that have seating with nice viewpoints. Some of them are on a second floor or a third floor that'll give you a nice view. Some of them are just kind of on walkways or pathways, some of them in parks. So as an American, one of my complaints about here is I love coffee, but especially here in the suburbs, you go to a coffee shop and it's in a parking lot. Your view is of the parking lot. But in Istanbul, your view is, I'm sure there are some that have views of the parking lot, but the majority of them have more interesting views. So it's just a nice place to sit, relax, and watch the Turkish world go by. Food tours, I'm sure we've all heard of food tours, some more specialized than others. Just as a little bit of a pro tip here, we have a friend who is a food tour guide in the neighborhood of Moda. She's not only third generation from Istanbul, she's third generation from Moda. So if you ever want to go to that neighborhood and you want a good food tour, I will definitely recommend this friend, and you can ask me about that in the future. So that's really a way to get to know the neighborhood, right? Food tours, you eat a lot of food, but a good food tour guide will explain why this food was important, why they eat it a lot, where they eat it, and so on. And then food markets beyond the Grand Bazaar and the Spice Bazaar, too. There are lots of small markets, some of them just pretty much on a street corner, but there are lots of different markets that specialize in different kinds of foods. Other fun activities, I promised, like I said, I promised I'd do some that was not food. So, other fun activities that's not food, this is one of those that the first one, if you know, you know. A lot of people who have been a lot to the Middle East or to Southeast Asia know that going to a mall is an actual activity and not just something you have to do. Usually in the US, we go to a mall because we need to go to the mall. A lot of people in these hotter areas go to a mall because it has so many things to do. So malls have air conditioning, which is great. And I will say, as I have been to malls in the Emirates, I've been to malls in Doha, Qatar, and it's just so interesting that they have theme parks and they have skiing and things like that, and aquariums in these places. So a mall isn't just a hit and run to do some shopping; it has activities inside too. The decor I found, I've stepped inside a bunch of different Turkish Istanbul malls, actual malls around the whole of Turkey, and they're often nicely decorated too. So if it's super hot outside and you want to go for a walk, I mean, it's not ideal, it's not perfect, but it's a great setting. And one of the malls that's closest to us has great food as well. So it's a nice place to just take a break with air conditioning, get some coffee, get a meal. So visiting a mall is a thing there. I just wanted to point that out. Take a longer ferry ride. So I think I have a map on the next slide. Yeah. So the longer ferry ride, this is zoomed in even more. This was that golden horn I was talking about, the one that's kind of it's closed at this end. So you can come up here. This is the tourist area like I was talking about. We have Kapılı Çarşı is Grand Bazaar. So that's that right there. And this is where a lot of your touristy things are. You can get on a ferry right at the dock here and take it up the Golden Horn. And it has stops along the way. You can get off and get on and just see some of the neighborhoods around there. It goes up to about here, so just beyond that bridge. It ends in a neighborhood which I've walked around because I've taken the ferry out to the end and walked around it. It is way, way traditional. So it's just interesting to see just how all the different neighborhoods are back here and along the way. The ferry ride from here all the way out to the end is probably about 30 to 45 minutes. And of course, it's up to you to get off along the way. There's also a couple little museums along here. There is a transportation museum somewhere around here that I have yet to get to. It has been on my list so much, but I just haven't made it there yet. Another thing from this map before I skip back to the previous one, you can see that there are lots of things that I have hearts and lots of places on the I love list on this map. The other map I did, I took a screenshot of a map not logged in as me. But this is the one I took logged in as me just to show you so many things of interest around this area. So going back, talked about the Golden Horn. I talked about the ferry ride. It's inexpensive, like I said, at least currently. The longer ferry rides are $1.50 each way, so it's cheap to go back and forth. It's like I say, it's the cheapest cruise in the world, and it's underrated. A lot of people just visit Istanbul and think, oh, I'll take the ferry to get from point A to point B, but there's so much more behind that. There's some bridges that you can walk across that have nice views. Again, I'm going to just quick Jump ahead. So the Galata Bridge is this one here. I was talking about if you stay in this neighborhood of Karakoy, you can just walk across the bridge to get to the tourist sites. It's a nice bridge. It has great views of the city, lots of the mosques sitting up on the hills. This is one of the infamous bridges that have lots of fishermen off of the side. So you can also take a look at that, maybe have a great conversation with a fisherman. May not have the greatest English, but at least you can use whatever gestures and phrases that you have to get across there. This other, not sure. I don't think this may be the Hullitch Bridge, the other one. The Hullitch Bridge is for a tram only. It's only for the metro, the public transportation. But there's a walkway to go across. And the nice thing about being on the bridges, the Hullitch Bridge is a little bit higher. You can be up on the bridge and see either way. The Galata Bridge, is a little bit farther down. You still get a view, but it's just different. So just taking walks around is great. And then one more thing I have, get a spectacular view from a rooftop bar. So alcohol is not really heavily promoted in Istanbul, but they still have bars. They have bars where you can get alcohol, you can get wine, beer, you can get mixed drinks. And especially around where we live near Galata, there are lots of places that have a rooftop. Now, if you're there during the summer, like we're often there during the summer, it can be pretty darn hot on the rooftop, but still you can go up, get a drink, look around, and if you are someone who does not drink alcohol, I don't drink alcohol very much, maybe once a year, you can get non-alcoholic beverages pretty easily. And so these rooftop bars, a lot of them in the more popular areas, have DJs that come in at night, so you can have music in the background with a nice view, and maybe talk to some locals there. So rooftop bars are a thing. I'm not going to lie about that. The drinks at the rooftop bars aren't cheap because you're paying for the view and the music if they have the music as well as your drink, but it's still a fun experience to do now and then. Before I jump ahead, I'm going to show you, I'm going to point out this picture. This is from Cevahir Mall, which is the closest mall to our apartment. And like I said, I just when it's a hot day, it's nice to go in there and you can see down here on the first floor, there's some seating, there's a cafe, and this picture doesn't show it, but um, there's a window on the top, which is what I'm trying. Skylight, that's what I'm looking for. There's a skylight on the top, and it lets natural light through, which is really nice when you're sitting there and you just get the natural light, but you're in air conditioned, so that's always good. So just skipping back here, I think I've covered everything on this map. Uh, and a couple other fun activities. This is toward the end of the actual presentation, full of waterfronts, right? There are so many waterfronts around, and these waterfronts have benches where you can sit and just watch the world go by. I have a picture of that on the next slide. I'll tell you about that. You can watch the Bosphorus is such a busy waterway. It's just fun to watch all of these boats go in and out. You can attend a soccer game, and of course they call it football over there. Turks are very into soccer. There are three major soccer teams, three major football teams, I'll call it, and you can be a temporary fan of one of them. You can go and see one, but like I say, if the schedule doesn't work out, there are lots of sports bars where you can go and see the game and with the locals, and it's just so fun to see the locals just having their chant. Each team has its own chant, and so when the team's doing well, just hearing that. So that's also a fun thing to do if you're into that. Window shopping in the less touristy areas. There are lots of great things that you can buy. Usually, if you're in the touristy areas, you see a lot of the same things. You see the Turkish lamps, which are beautiful, but you see the Turkish lamps, you see the Turkish glassware, you see things like that. But other areas, you might be able to find more variety and maybe not one of the things on the main list. Another thing that's often fun, something I've had on my list but I have not done yet, Turkish lamp making classes, Turkish tile painting classes. I have the tile painting over here. Turkey is known for its fabulously beautiful designed tiles, and you can take a class and paint your own to take home as a souvenir. Same thing with a Turkish lamp. So just all sorts of fun things to do that you might not think of when you read the top 10 things to do on TripAdvisor or Instagram or any of those. It's just such a rich city. And to just show you a few more things here. So over on the left side, This is in one of the mosques looking up. So it is the inside of the ceiling of, I believe that's Ortaköy Mosque. So Ortaköy Mosque is a famous mosque that you may have seen on Instagram. It sticks out on a little peninsula into the Bosphorus, has a bridge on the back. It's not a very big mosque, but you can go inside the mosques even as a non-Muslim, as long as you are not going at prayer time. So you respect the prayer. And also if you are appropriately covered. So as a woman, I would make sure my legs are covered, my shoulder and my head, just of course to respect them. Here I have a picture of benches that are right along the waterfront. Like I said, there's so many places where you can just sit, enjoy the water, enjoy the boat and ferry traffic going by out there. And this is just another bookstore. This, I believe, is the same bookstore, if I'm remembering correctly, as that one with a spiral staircase with the colorful books. This is the second floor, and the bookstores are beautiful. They have lots of great books. It's a great place to sit and relax as well. So that is so many things that you can do in Istanbul that you may not know of. So just to finish things off here, this is who I am. I always make a little bit of I always make a little bit of describing who I am at the end of each one. And my company where I plan travel is called I'm Out of Here Travel. My contact information is there on on the right side. You can email me, you can text me, you can call me. If you want to go to Istanbul and want to know a little bit more about how to have a more locals experience, I can help you out. And what I always do in these presentations, I talked about Turkey at a presentation that I gave last year, which also lives on my YouTube channel. Anyone who comes to these, or maybe if you watch it all the way through on YouTube, thank you for doing so. I can give you an extra 30 minutes complimentary consultation on any trip using the code Istanbul. So just mention that you have the code Istanbul and I'll give you an extra 30 minutes. So usually when I'm doing trip planning for someone, I'll just give them 30 minutes. I'll give anyone 30 minutes free straight up in the front. So if you ask me, if you say, I'm going to Rome, I want to know 3 hotels in this particular neighborhood, it'll probably take me less than 30 minutes to find that. And so that could be free for you. But if you're saying, I'm going to Rome, I don't know what to see, I don't know where to go, then that'll take more of my time. And so I do charge a little bit for that. But again, using this code, you can get an extra 30 minutes, which will give you 60 minutes total. So that is all I have to say for today. Thank you so much for listening to all of my Istanbul business and all the Istanbul that I love. And oh, so my lovely partner is reminding me of something here, reminding me to tell you that I also arrange trips to other places. Good point. I don't just plan Istanbul, I plan trips to anywhere, but Istanbul, of course, has my heart, so I like talking about Istanbul a lot. Anyway, so there you have that. Again, thank you so much, and I will open it up for any questions. Type in the chat, come off mute, whatever works. And now my coffee is probably cold. I'll just leave this screen up in case anyone has any questions, but I'll give you maybe a minute or two. Oh, someone's coming off mute, it sounds like, or am I mistaken on that? So, Natalie, you're saying why Istanbul? So, Istanbul compared to other cities, are you asking about? Yes. All right. So Istanbul compared to other cities, one of the things that I do love about Istanbul, one of the reasons I got property there is it's literally, if you look on a map, and of course this is the map as the Western world has done it, Istanbul is right in the middle. So not only is it a great place to be, but you can easily travel to so many other places from there. Whereas an example I give, living in Seattle, I went to South Africa a few years ago. It took me 30 hours of travel time to get to South Africa. That is a freakishly long travel day. So Istanbul makes it easier. But in addition to that, that's just kind of a logistics convenience side of things. The people have some of the best hospitality that I have ever seen. Now, sometimes tourists will go over there, especially American tourists, and say they weren't smiling at me, so I didn't think they liked me. In the US, we tend to smile all the time. But oftentimes you go to places and they're smiling and it looks like it's a pasted on fake smile, yes? So in Istanbul, they might not smile all the time, right? They might not smile all the time, but they really sincerely want to help. most of the people that I've met in Istanbul, no matter what their job is, whether they're an executive of a company or a window washer, they take pride in their work and it just comes through in their personality. And I really appreciate that in the personality. So that's one of the reasons I really love it. Absolutely. Thank you, Natalie. Oh, Wayne, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love.
Uh-huh. Have
I
have
hope
you
I can go to there.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
If you hopefully if you go to Istanbul, we will be there too, and we can see each other there.
yeah.
Uh-huh. All right. I am going to shut things down soon or in 10 minutes, whichever comes first. So any other thoughts, comments? Doesn't have to be a question, it can be a comment as well.
I have a
How would
question.
Hmm.
When I want go to Istanbul, um, we need a visa.
Very good question. If you are an American citizen, you do not need a visa. That just changed a few years ago. So I'm trying to remember when, because I've been there every year or every couple of years for quite some time. Um, I think it was 2022 or 2023 where they did away with visas for Americans and I think also Canadians and residents of the UK. Other countries may need to have a visa to come in. So that's just something to check on. But if you're American, you just need a valid passport and it's all good.
Yeah,
Great
but
question. Thank you.
uh, now I only have a green card.
Mm, I am not sure about that. I would check with your country of origin just to make sure.
Yeah.
Great questions, though. Thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Thank
didn't realize it was you
how,
talking. So check with Vietnam. I thought it was someone else talking. Sorry.
you.
Any other
how
thing?
spicy would you say the food is?
Oh, sorry.
Like
I didn't hear that, Taya. What? Could you repeat that?
Tia,
Tia. Okay. What was your
how
question again?
spicy would you say how spicy would you say the food is? Like, are we talking like Indian style spicy,
No,
or is it going to be
no.
more of like Mediterranean
So you can find
level spice?
Mediterranean, I would say. You can find spicy food there, but I have to say that I've generally found most Turks to be fearful of spice. I am not big, I'm not huge on spicy food. I'm more a medium spicy food. And when I eat food over there, I barely notice there's any spice. In fact, there's one of the kebabs that my husband and I really, really like. And sometimes we'll go and order it in a restaurant, and it's technically by the name supposed to be spicy, and all the servers come and say spicy, spicy, like they're warning us, and we eat it, and it's like if you're going to a Thai restaurant or an Indian restaurant, it's maybe a 1.5 on the 4 or 5 star scale. So there are places you can find spice if you want something spicier. They're really into pickled hot peppers, and you can buy those and put them on things if you want the spice. You can also buy and like spice mixes to sprinkle on your food. But in general, you go to a restaurant, it's not going to be very spicy.
Oh, that's good. I'm not a spicy
Yeah.
person, and I was just like, it's close to Asia, and I was like, what kind of influence do they have on their spice?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that said, if you want, you can go to an Asian restaurant there and get a super spicy dish. They have Asian restaurants, they have Indian restaurants, but in terms of traditional Turkish food, it's just not very spicy, at least by my standards.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question, Tia. Anything else?
Yeah,
Go for it, Rodri. Glad to see you here.
I would love to for everyone to hear a little bit about the islands.
Yes, I almost put that on the list, but I had too much other stuff to talk about. So the Princess Islands you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, we went to Bucca, and it
Hmm.
was just like stepping into another time.
Oh, totally. Yeah. So there are some islands off of the coast of the Asian side called the Prince's Islands. The main island called Buyukada, which literally means big island, uh, you can get to by ferry going from the major areas that I was talking about. It's over an hour ferry ride. So that is just something that you have to keep in mind when you are planning your trip. Like, for instance, I gotta be honest, if you're in Istanbul only for 2 or 3 days, I would not prioritize that. I would do other things because, again, that would take too much out of your day. It is a car-free island, so you can just, like he was saying, it's like you take a step back in time. There are hotels, there are restaurants. It's very relaxing, so it's a great place to go and spend an afternoon. There are beaches. So, yes, there are things like that too, as well. So, if you're in the middle of Istanbul, there's so much traffic, there are so many cars, and it's kind of chaotic noise sometimes, which I like, but not everyone likes it. You can take a break from that by taking the ferry over to these Princess Islands as well. So that's the Princess Islands in a nutshell, in a really quick, big nutshell. Other
Thanks.
thoughts? Oh, so go ahead.
I was just saying thank you.
Oh, sure, no problem at all. All right, so gonna wait a couple more moments for any other comments or questions. Thank you for reminding me, Rodri, to bring that up because, like I said, I just have so many things I want to talk about. Oh, and you have something else, or just saying hi?
Yes,
All right, it's
you in here.
what? Sorry, it was
I'm glad when see you in here.
yes.
Yeah.
All right, if there are no other thoughts, comments, or questions, I'll
Yeah.
give us a few more seconds. So a recording of this is going to end up on my YouTube channel over the next few days as well, once I have time to edit things down. My YouTube channel is, you go to YouTube, you look for I'm Out of Here Travel. That's where it is. And I'm here on YouTube. I'm here on Instagram. So you can look for me anywhere and get some of these travel updates and learn more about how to travel better and have enriched travel experiences. So thank you all for coming. I wish you a really nice evening. It's still here on the West Coast. It's still only 6 o'clock, but I hope the rest of you have a great evening. And once again, thank you for coming. I really appreciate the support. So have a great night.